For as long as humans have existed, we've been telling stories around campfires. For entertainment, yeah, but more importantly, to pass on essential survival skills from one generation to the next. It's why we are still around. Skills such as how to have shelter from the elements, or how to obtain sustainable food. Stories are so much more powerful than just straight instruction. For instance, hunt with a partner, your life might depend on it, is great advice, but might get lost in the distractions of trying to, survive and continue the human race. But an edge of your seat story, no one is going to forget that. Bob Legasa will tell you he is fortunate to do just that. Hand down knowledge to the next generation by combining things that he has learned from his elders with his own experiences. Today, he is telling us of a specific experience of what happened to him on the 13th of October, 2018 in southwest Montana while hunting elk. The story of how he survived a grizzly bear attack. This is the Teeth Podcast. Wild animal attack stories firsthand from the survivors. I am Jeremy Carberry, a wilderness kayak guide, animal handler, the survivor of a few animal attacks myself, and your host. I met up with Bob over the winter in his hometown of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. When we arrived at a park beside a lake, there was some snow on the ground, but that didn't deter a few people who were jet skiing and tubing on the lake. The air temperature was in the low 30s, and I imagine the water had to be around the same. They were wearing wetsuits, but I was dry and wearing 2 coats, and I was cold. I'm not exaggerating when I say if the water was even a little bit colder, they would have had to trade the jet ski out for ice skates. So if you hear a little bit of motor noise in the background, that's just northern Idaho people jet skiing in February. What you do, some of the things that you've done in your life.
Okay. My name is Bob Legasa. I live here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm just an avid outdoorsman. I mean, I live and breathe for being in the mountains.
You've been fortunate enough to spend pretty much all of your professional life outdoors.
Pretty much, yeah. I was a stunt double for there was a movie called Hot Dog, which was kind of like a cult movie for the ski world. And that was back in 1983, and that was pretty much the start of it. Then 85, 86 through, early 2000, I was pretty active with traveling the world and doing aerial acrobatics on skis at different places all over the world, indoors and, most of the time on snow. But there were times that we were, jumping on artificial ramps and airbags at, convention centers for trade shows, halftime events like NFL halftimes. We'd push a jump out and do that. Entertainment, and then that's kind of one of my biggest claims to fame on that would have been we had a jump that was 90 feet long. It was basically like a truck and trailer, but it was in the Rose Bowl parade.
Oh, wow.
And it was pretty, you can imagine.
Like as the trailer was moving.
Yeah. So we were on the trailer, which was a ski jump, and we would land basically on kind of the truck, or the driving part of it. And you know what the Rose Bowl parade looks like. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of roses.
They build bleachers for the audience.
A couple of scary instances on that. If the truck was going slightly down a hill, then all of a sudden your ramp became like a wall.
Wow.
You could almost free fall. Or if it turned going around the corner, like the famous, I think it's called Colorado Boulevard turn, where all the bleachers are and all the newscasters. My buddy almost went at that time, and he probably would have missed the entire truck and or the entire landing hill and landed on the street. So it was pretty fun.
How dangerous is other than the tractor, the trailer stunt, like just what you were doing in general?
Aerial acrobatics, yes, there is there's danger involved. I mean, paralysis, broken back, that type of thing can happen, and a couple of my good friends are paralyzed from that. It's just, things can happen. I mean, if you were to talk to most every athlete that I know that has had a injury that has been career ending or, even worse, more than likely they're going to say that they probably wouldn't changed anything. They probably would have changed something that day, but, it's a danger or a thrill that, that we live for. Back in the mid-'80s, or late 80s, I got into television and been in front of a camera doing different things for news and national TV stuff. Had a few different national TV syndicated skiing shows that were like half-hour shows. And then I did things for the regional news, the Northwest, called Ski Tips, and I kind of give people tips on, on skiing, skiing and snowboarding.
Like the weather report, and then they also have ski tips.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what happens in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, little minute 30, what to do here,
Yeah. Bob grew up hunting, but once he got involved with professional skiing in the 80s, he didn't really have much time to hunt. Years later, when his travel schedule slowed down, he got back into it as a way of being in the mountain wilderness that he loves so much.
In the 90s, I started really getting out and spending a lot of time in the month of September bow hunting, and then it was a whole new world. It's like, wow, adrenaline filled, kind of like, extreme skiing, So when an elk is bugling and screaming at you and you're, trying to get in close, within 40 yards, it's pretty challenging and, like I said, adrenaline filled.
For people who don't know, why is it important in September?
Well, that is the kind of the mating for elk, what we call the rut, which typically goes into full swing, typically middle of September through the end of September. And at that time, the bulls are bugling, they're gathering up their harem. They might start off at the beginning of September where they have like 1 or 2 cows, and then they'll fight other bulls and take their cows. And next thing you know, you've got a bull that is what we call a herd bull that might have 20 to 30 cows with them, and all these other what we call satellite bulls, maybe 2 or 3 that are hanging around the outskirts, trying to move in on this guy and steal cows. So that is what September is about for me. It's about elk hunting and that frenzy with the elk rut. That I do video work. So I do work for an outfitter over in Montana, and I put together some of his marketing videos of, why you should come here. We've got elk, we've got beautiful mountains, we've got rafting, da-da-da-da. So when I go on backcountry skiing, I have an avalanche transceiver. So I go into these backcountry lodges, like I'm on a heli trip or something like that. First night you get there, they have a DVD or a video that they play on how to be prepared when you're in the backcountry on snow. How to operate your transceiver, how to go send, receive, how to search for somebody, how to do this stuff. And I told Greg, we should do that for the clients that come here to Montana Guide Service on how to use bear spray. My hunting partner's name is Greg Gibson. He's from this area, and I've known him for 30 plus years. And he's a skier. That's how I kind of met him.
Right on.
And we just, we hunt well together, and we both like traveling over to Montana to this one place to hunt. So it's a pretty long-term relationship we've had hunting together. So it was the beginning of September. We were back in the afternoon from hunting, and we had a can of the bear spray, and I shot the video. I'd kind of written a script, I shot the video, and you know, I made Greg read the script over and over and over again, you know, a little voiceover and, you know, on camera where he was talking. So he had to do each one of those lines probably, you know, 3 to 4 times. Pop the safety off, you know, do it again, over and over again, you know, read this. This is what, you know, how you do this. So that happened the first couple weeks in September, and it was a month later that the attack happened. So it was ingrained in his head.
The brown bear can be found throughout the northern hemisphere of the world, including Europe, Asia, and North America. The North American version of the brown bear is known as the grizzly. The original range of the grizzly was from Alaska to Mexico, covering the western half of the continent as far east as what is now Minnesota. No one was taking an official census hundreds of years ago, but the experts say there were probably around 100,000 grizzlies living across the lower 48 states. Nowadays, there is also not an official grizzly population count either, given that they have a tendency of not staying in one place and live in some pretty remote and hard to get to locations. But it's estimated that today there are less than 2,000 grizzlies in the lower 48. That's a population decrease of about 98% if these estimations are accurate. We do know for certain, however, that grizzlies have been pushed out of almost all of the areas where they once lived along the western half of the continent. Now they are only located in 4 states in the lower 48: Washington, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, which is where Bob was attacked. In these 4 states, it's usually only small pockets of land that host grizzlies. Because of this, grizzlies in the lower 48 are a protected species listed as threatened.
September, like I said, we spend a lot of time hunting in Montana. We didn't have any success. My hunting partner, Greg, and I had lots of great opportunities, but never were able to harvest an elk during that time.
And every time you get close, I know I go out for lobster and I like fishing and stuff. Every time you get close to getting something and you miss, you just want it all the more.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's that type of drive of not only succeeding, but I love elk. You know, I love elk meat. You know, I have a freezer full. Hopefully I get a freezer full every year so that it can last me through the next season. It's usually around August. It's like, man, we're getting low. Gotta make this happen.
It's more than, so hunting elk is more than an adrenaline rush for you.
Yeah.
It's actually the way that you provide for yourself and your family.
Correct.
Partially.
Yeah. We eat a lot of elk. Yeah. My wife, not so much. More of a mental thing for her, but my kids, you know, they grew up eating it. They love it, and now it's becoming part of their lifestyle, part of their you know, of what they eat every day.
Decentralized blockchain technology is creating a welcome alternative to our central bank systems, but crypto can be complicated and overwhelming. I know this because I've tried a lot of different exchanges and have paid a lot of not so upfront fees in the process. I've found that OKcoin is the easiest and most affordable on-ramp to decentralized ecosystems like Terra Luna, Avalanche, Ethereum, and many others. There are no fees to send and receive funds from your bank, and the fees to swap between assets are the lowest around. If you create and transfer $100 of funds to an OKcoin account using the link in this episode's show notes, after 30 days, the Teeth Podcast gets $50 worth of Bitcoin, and so do you. But please do your own research because this is not financial advice. After coming up empty-handed for the first part of the season, Bob and his hunting partner, Greg, headed back to Montana.
for the last week of October for like 3 or 4 days. And it was on a Friday night or Friday afternoon. We went out and we located a bunch of elk, and we thought, okay, we're not going to be able to get in on them tonight due to wind and all the eyes from all the cows. There were probably 50, 60 cows around. So it was, we thought, okay, we'll go in the morning and we'll come up with a game plan of how to make our approach. So that next morning we went back and parked our truck down the road, probably about a mile away from where where we saw all the elk. And we drove back in there on a little dirt road, got somewhat close to the base of the mountain. And like I said, the mountain is sparsely vegetated, and it goes up, a couple thousand feet, which you go through some more. You go through timber as you go higher. And the lower part is sagebrush, tall sage, which is kind of like walking through a cornfield. You don't, it's like a corn maze, you can't really see over it. There's openings, and then it gets really tight in spots, and it's pretty intimidating if you don't know what's in there. And what are in there a lot are grizzly bears.
Contrary to popular belief, grizzlies are omnivores and primarily eat plants. Of the meat that grizzlies do eat, most are insects. Something I just learned is that bears love to eat moths. The ones that fly into lights, the small ones, not the giant one that hates Godzilla. A grizzly can eat 40,000 normal-sized moths a day. Even though grizzlies are primarily foragers, eating plants and insects, they definitely have the strength, speed, and intelligence to take down very large prey. And they do. A full-grown grizzly bear can run over 35 miles per hour. That's more than the speed limit of your average residential street. Has a bite strength of 1,200 psi. That's strong enough to crush a bowling ball. Has 4-inch long claws on each paw. Has the strength of about 6 full-grown men, which means one swipe of a grizzly bear's paw is strong enough to break the spine and instantly paralyze a mountain lion or a wolf, or literally knock a human's head right off of their body in one swipe. I'm glad they like to eat moths. All right, back to Bob and Greg hunting elk in Montana as they make their way through the really tall sagebrush.
What are in there a lot are grizzly bears. They like to hang in these in this one particular area, and we're well aware of it. That was one of the main reasons that we liked to wait until it was light. Why we wanted to get up on the side of the hill so we could be elevated above the sagebrush and not in it. So we made our way down, probably a third of a mile, quarter of a mile, and it was snowing heavily. I mean, it was dumping, just big pancake-sized wet flakes. You put your binoculars on, it was impossible to see anything, but we could hear the elk out pretty much where we had left them the night before. We skirted the side of the hill for probably a quarter of a mile. We could hear the elk, what we thought was maybe a couple 100 yards below us. So we looked over towards that direction, probably about 40 yards away was another clump of sagebrush, and we thought, let's make our way over to that, get positioned in that area, and see what happens.
When you're in the sagebrush, are you thinking like you're using that as an advantage? The elk will be less likely to spot you?
We're going through it because we have to. I mean, that's from point A to point B. It's also concealment for us, as well as, if I was in a big redwood forest, I would be skirting alongside, trying to get next to trees and, brush, using whatever I can as camouflage. So, yeah, we got down into an area where we were probably 100 yards away from the elk. And we thought if we move forward about another 40 yards over to this next clump of sagebrush, we'll be within, close within bow range. We might be able to sneak in a little bit more, at least be able to get, a visual on them. We made about 3 steps and heard a growl, and a cub stood up and reared and ran away. She was probably about 12 to 15 yards from us. So, anywhere from 40 to 50 feet.
In all of your years hunting, you've seen grizzlies in the wild before.
I have. Nothing that close. Okay. Yeah.
This was a new experience.
This was a new experience. So soon as she reared up and growled and ran the other way, Mom was beelining straight for me. And like I said, she was probably 40, 50 feet away.
But what does that look like? How would you explain that experience?
Imagine, you know what it'd be like if you had a rabid St. Bernard coming at you. It's like, oh man, this is a big animal. Well, grizzly's probably about 4 times that size. And she and the cub were tucked right around, some sagebrush, more than likely working on those same elk that we were hunting.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense.
So we surprised them because the wind was in our face, which is ideal for hunting, and we were walking in that direction, so she didn't smell us, and it was snowing heavily, so it was very, very quiet, and it was, we scared them, they scared us. So the cub rears up, she growls, she takes off the other way, Mom beeline straight for me. When she started charging, we did kind of what you're supposed to do, raised our arms and yell, bear, and try and look big, and realized that wasn't working. What a lot of times they'll run like 2 or 3 steps and stop and then jump up and down, kind of like, they're going to get you. Well, she kept motoring at me, so.
And this is all happening really fast.
Nanoseconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole ordeal from seeing her to where she was on me was probably not more than 3 seconds.
Wow.
I basically just kind of stood my ground and put my arms up like I was going to take a hit from a football player or I was in a bar fight. I put my arms up in front of me to protect my face. And she basically I don't want to say jumped, but just at full speed reared up and in a sense tackled me. Luckily, I was already kind of moving back a little. I was backpedaling, and I think that I tripped. And so her hitting me and my tripping, I think, were pretty much at the same time. So in a sense, softened the blow. She was on top of me, had my arm in her mouth, and she's swatting, and I'm blocking these punches best that I can, and I'm kicking and I'm yelling. And all of a sudden she lets go, and I think, thank God. And then she rears up. Then she drops down on my other side, which is now my right side, and her head is literally 2-3 feet away from my head. Same elevation now. Mouth is open, and I'm looking at her, and out of the corner of my eye, I can see Greg over right behind me, probably another 3 to 5 feet, and he blasts her with the bear spray. She retreats, and it dawns on me at that time that he sprayed her the first time. That's why she released me.
Oh, wow.
So
she got sprayed, and then she kept attacking after being sprayed.
She went for him as, that was the new threat. Yeah. So she went for him, and when he sprayed her for the second time, she immediately retreated and started running back into the sage where her cub was.
Whenever she was running at you, you were thinking, okay, I hope this is a bluff. Then, upon impact, you realized this is not a bluff.
Well, it was before impact that I realized that this is the real deal. And I was hoping that she would just, run right by me. And just, she realized when she was there that, it's not a good thing to go after humans.
You said that you were fighting back.
Yes.
So, certain animals, you're supposed to curl up in a ball and play dead. Grizzly bears, you've been told or you've learned that you want to fight back.
No, you're supposed to, if they're on you, you're supposed to cover your head and play dead. Okay. I mean, that is it. But this was literally, you know, just maybe a couple of seconds.
It was just instinct.
Yeah. So, you know, it didn't escalate much further where I had to think that. And I mean, I would have done, if it would have gone further, I would have been grabbing my pistol. I would have been grabbing my bear spray and trying to, you know, minimize that attack.
It happened so fast you didn't even have a chance to grab.
So what happened when she was running at me and I realized this was the real deal, I did not want to reach down and grab my pistol, which I had on my chest. I didn't want to have my hands bound over here. And I didn't want to go for the bear spray where my hands were down at my hip and have my head, my face totally exposed where I couldn't, you know, protect myself.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that was it. I mean, I'm talking, this is literally, like I said, 3 seconds for the whole thing from her seeing us to being on me. So, you know, a second and a half of all this going through my mind, and then all of a sudden realizing that it's not a bluff charge, and the next second and a half of like trying to cover up and be prepared for impact.
So it's your conscious mind hasn't even really caught up to what's going on with the situation. This is all instinct.
It's basically survival at this point. She retreats back into the sagebrush, and now I realize, you know, what has happened this whole time with, you know, Greg spraying her. And at that point, I really can't see much now because my eye is just watering. I've got blood running down my face. She has bitten my arm. And she had that in her mouth, and she had released it, and you know she was swatting at me. So the blood that was where I couldn't see was my eyes were watering from the bear spray, and she clawed me and scratched my eye. My face was scratched up where she had actually cut, you know, with her claws, cut the skin. And so blood was dripping down my face. I couldn't see from, you know, a combination of the bear spray and, you know, them watering from her claws. And at that point when she was retreating, I thought I need to be prepared in case she comes back for a second attack. So I'm on my butt, and I'm pulling the bear spray out, and I'm trying to get the safety off. I've got gloves on from it was snowing, and I spray myself. I mean, I'm talking a direct hit in the face, but man. It was literally like this. Psst, that was it. But it was enough to put the nail in the coffin. So I can't see hardly a damn thing. I mean, man. It's just, it's kind of like in a movie when someone's, you know, going out from, you know, being drugged. That's what my vision was like, and I was still fully conscious. And Greg, now he's not able to see, and we're both kind of yelling.
So Greg got some collateral as well.
Oh yeah. So the bear spray, you know, it blew back in his face because, like we said, the wind was in our face, and he blew, you know, sprayed into the wind, got the bear, but it blew back in his face as well as hit me, hit the bear. You know, it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, there is residual, but we're both here today.
Bear spray is about 3 times more potent than pepper spray or mace, and better at deterring bears than bullets.
We couldn't see anything, and we're yelling, you know, like to try and keep this bear away, just, you know, to scare the bears. We have no idea where they are in the sagebrush. It's kind of like, you know, one of those scary movies where, you know, there's somebody creeping around the house and you don't know what's going to happen. That's what we felt like.
Yeah.
Probably about 10 minutes went by of just, you know, like, oh man, what's happening? You know, throwing snow in our eyes. And And it was at that point, Greg said, put your face in the snow on the big sagebrush, because we had a couple inches of snow on there. He goes, put your face in the snow. It feels good. I mean, it was cooling. So I did that, and I realized that I can't see, and it's deathly quiet. If I'm going to die, it's going to be like right now where I don't see anything. And I realized at that point, I got to fight for this, and pulled my head up and started basically holding open my eyes with my fingers so that I could see.
Wow. Bob has just survived being knocked down, hit, clawed, and bit by a grizzly bear. But because of all the adrenaline and pepper spray burning his eyes, he's yet to fully realize the extent of his injuries. The bear ran off, but there's still so much more to this story that we're breaking it up into 2 parts. The 2 hunters are by no means out of danger. They're still in the sagebrush. The hospital is over an hour drive away. The snow is coming down harder now and quickly developing into a blizzard. Also, back in Idaho, Bob's daughter is and has been looking forward to going elk hunting with her dad for the first time. They have a trip scheduled for the following week, and Bob really wants to pass his knowledge and skills on to his daughter the same way it was passed on to him and the generations before, going all the way back to the very first humans. In the next episode, we find out exactly how strong Bob's will is to live and why. Join our email list at theteethpod.com and you'll be the first to know when that episode is out. Bob also gave me a crazy looking photo to share that was taken soon after the attack. I'll send it to you after you sign up for that email list. It's a mailing list where I send out a little more info on each of these amazing survival stories. The Teeth is co-produced by Scott Neary and myself. Music is by Davey Chedwigan and Joshua Lopez. I am your host, Jeremy Carberry. I hope you find some time to get outside and enjoy the wildlife today, even if it's just some birds in your backyard. But as always, please be sure to give the wildlife the space and respect it deserves. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and telling a friend about this show. And seriously, get outside today.